No. Do you remember the question about
Yeah,
Billy Joel? What was the
of
question?
course.
I'm don't answer it. I'm gonna see if I can.
I was going to stop and
I'm an average Billy Joel fan.
no,
Give me a
I was
question.
going to stop and do it there. Okay, so I later find out that a friend of mine, Jonathan Bourne, who I ended up writing on game shows the following year, he was a writer on the show and he wrote this. So Wink Martindale goes, okay, you got to finish the lyrics to this Billy Joel song. It takes a lot to keep a love alive, and every heart pumps a different beat. But if we shift our love into overdrive, we could generate a lot of heat. It's a deep cut.
Dude, I don't know, because I used to make jokes about Billy Joel. I do a joke on stage about Davies, and then Davies in the Navy and probably for life. And I'm like, well, maybe Davey is gay. Maybe like maybe he can't, he can go. And that's why there's all guys in a bar and there's a waitress practicing politics. Maybe that's why he never had time for a wife. And Davey, maybe they're dating. So that's my thing. But no, what was
the answer? Was we could generate a lot of heat on 52nd Street. It's the last cut of 52nd Street, right? It's the title cut. Total. Now, if you watch the clip, I think it's on YouTube. If you hit Frank Nicotero debt, as he starts reading it, you're gonna see like a blank look on my face, like, oh no, I just blew $7,000.
This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner. I'm your host, Steve Cooper. We have a great show today, but I want to give a shout out to my sponsors, Laurel Lanes, right down on Route 73 in Maple Shade. It's the ultimate entertainment center. They have 60 lanes of bowling, a state-of-the-art arcade games. They have a private luxury suite. They have something for everyone. It's great for corporate events, birthday parties, or just a night out with your friends. And they have a restaurant on site called Splits Bar and Grill. And once a month I do cocktails with Cooper there, which is a huge networking event. And if you want to do a networking event there, the first time you go in and do it, they'll give 10% of your proceeds back to your charity of choice. And they have a great happy hour Monday through Friday, 4 to 7. I know when the Philly season starts, during games, they have dollar dogs, and they're good dogs. They're not little crappy dogs, they're great dogs. And during the month, they have karaoke. They have so many good live events. They have trivia. And on your way out, if you're hungry for some sweets, go to Lickety Splits. That's their ice cream parlor. They have homemade concoctions. They have some with booze. I've had the butter pecan bourbon, which is very good. So please go check out Laurel Lanes and Splits on Route 73 in Maple Shade, New Jersey. Go to laurelLanesNJ.com. Anyway, we have a great show today. This gentleman was on my show, Cooper Talk, twice in LA, but I was on his show, Punchlines, with Frank Nicotero, right before the Super Bowl, and I predicted that the Eagles would win 31-21. I was very confident. I was off because they really kicked ass, and we're not going to go into it, but you can go find on Frank's, you can go to on YouTube and find my story about when Tom Dempsey washed my hair, and my guest is Frank Nicotero. How you doing, Frank?
I'm good, man. I love hearing all those bowling. All the splits is the name of the lanes, and that's unbelievable. Look, I wish I stopped bowling about 25 years ago because I once got on a streak in Philadelphia, in St. Louis. I bowled a 225. I had bowled 80 the game before, never break 100. Bowled a 225, and I should have stopped. That way, when people ask me, "What'd you get the last time you bowled?" I could say 225. But I've never broke 100 again. I think just one weird night I got in the zone, and I told the owner, I go, how am I going to prove this? And he printed out like one of those old computer printouts, with the paper. And I had it for years and I lost it. But I had one epic night of bowling.
Well, if you're ever in the Philadelphia area, we'll go to Splits and we'll talk sports and we'll get dollar hot dogs because during the Phillies, it's a great deal. I would go in on a Sunday. I would sit there and I'd be like, I'm not doing anything. My wife's doing something around the house. I drive down, eat a few dollar dogs, watch the game, drink a 250 Yingling, and it's a great day.
Can't beat that.
So,
that's amazing.
Tell me about Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. I know you're out at the South Point Casino. How did that all come about? I mean, I know we'll get into when you hosted Street Smarts, but how did you get this show?
You know what? I was in LA. It was after COVID. Things were getting weird. A lot of the work was leaving town. My girlfriend and I I had sold my house in Studio City during COVID, during the peak. And then we were living in a townhouse trying to figure out what to do. So I'm like, let's figure this out. And then all of a sudden I see my phone ringing and the name on the display is Chris Andrews. Now, Chris Andrews and I have never spoken on the phone. But we had done a pilot in Pittsburgh for a pop culture gambling show. It was a little before gambling started becoming more mainstream and legit. And a friend of ours, a mutual friend in Pittsburgh, put this together, hired me to be the host. Chris was the sports guy. Then he had like a girl that did entertainment. And, you know, it was like over-unders on how long Brad and Angelina would stay together. It was just, you know, a show like that. So it didn't go anywhere. But we kept each other's numbers. So his name popped up, and I looked at my girlfriend, and I go, this could be about a job in Vegas. I swear to God. So I answered the phone. He's like, look, we had Veasan, Brent Musburger, and his crew doing shows here for years. They kind of left us in the middle of the night to move downtown. And all of a sudden I said, okay, what do you want from me? He goes, well, I think you'd be perfect. We want a sports comedy show. I'm going to fly you up to Vegas. We'll do like a little audition and see where it goes. I go, all right. Flew up from Burbank to Southwest, met with him and his partner, Vinny Malauulu, and Jimmy Vaccaro, who's a legend, his brother, Sonny Vaccaro. Matt Damon played him in the movie Air about, you know, getting Jordan to Nike. So I did a little audition. We went to dinner for about 3 hours. I flew back home, called me on Saturday and says, can you start Monday? I went to Vegas and started doing this show, and it's evolved into a really structured, lot of fun thing, regular co-hosts, a lot of comics on, a lot of local celebrities, a lot of entertainers. And we do sports, gambling, comedy, viral videos, stuff like that. And the show's working. We just finished our 344th show today, and we do it right in the studio that's in the sports book in South Point. And it's been a blast. And I still get out and do stand-up. I'm doing a show tomorrow at a restaurant here, and I'm doing Kimmel's and Brad Garrett's and getting in with clubs. It's like starting over again after being in LA for so long. But it just kind of happened, and here I am now after 28 years in Vegas, or in LA. I'm in Vegas now, so it's been good.
Well, tell me what the actual format is of the show, because I came on, and I think you had Craig Shoemaker, I believe.
I was looking for Eagles fans that week, so I got you and Shoemaker. Then I was looking for Chiefs fans, and I had Elliot Threet, and Kathleen Dunbar was sick. She was going to be on because she's a big Chiefs fan. But it's kind of started out as, we opened the show, got a few jokes there. We go into top of show breaking videos. We kind of look at, the lighter side of sports to open the show. We're not going to show highlights and run those down. We like a lot of fan footage, a lot of reaction stuff. Philadelphia Eagle fans were gold for that all season, the stuff happening in the stands. So we show some of those videos. Then we start talking about gambling lines, whatever one of those teams might have been in a clip. Maybe they're playing tonight. Let's look at their line. And one of my co-hosts is usually a sports analyst, and they'll start breaking down the lines and why it looks good one way or another. And then we get into looking at some funny stuff from X, some tweets. We call it That's Crazy or Line of the Night. We do that. Usually have or sometimes have an interview like yourself. And then we get into some funny games that I've come up with, to just spur conversation of gambling and sports and comedy. So we have a lot of comics, and I got some Hall of Fame baseball. I've had Tom Glavine, John Smoltz on. My buddy Denny Nagel, who played for the Pirates and Braves, obviously helped me get them. But we've had Eddie Olczyk to talk hockey and horse racing because he's great at that. We had Bill Hillgrove, longtime voice of the Steelers, Laney Fratteri, longtime voice of the Pirates. Obviously, I'm going to do a lot of Pittsburgh stuff. But, we'll get Vegas entertainers, Billy Gardell coming through town. Bob Zaney lives here now. So it's just been whoever's in town and wants to come on the show, and I hook everybody up with a free buffet. So what comic is going to say no to a free buffet?
Well, I'm waiting for a coupon for a free buffet. Maybe,
you're good.
I want something because I didn't get it. Now, have you moved to Vegas?
Yeah. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, let's go to Vegas. I met my girlfriend here in Vegas. So I told her, I said, look, do you want to go back to Vegas? She's like, heck yeah. So we're here. LA has just changed so much. I have friends there that have worked on game shows and other shows and productions for years. And, it's been tough. And I just think this was a thing that happened at a fortunate time. It's actually making me concentrate more on my stand-up, I think, because I kind of had to start over and get my foot in the door in some new clubs. Whereas I was a regular forever at the Ice House and the Laugh Factory. Now it's a whole new market and getting in, and actually had to someone's like, well, I'm not sure who you are. Like, can you come and do 5 minutes? I'm like, sure. So the MC's like, before wants an intro. He's like, well, how long have you been doing stand-up? I'm like, over 30 years. He's like, what? And I go, he goes, oh, why are you auditioning? I go, I don't know, but just get me up. Hold on. My girlfriend's passing me a note. My girlfriend watches what?
Your show.
Yes.
For everybody, because me and your mom watch
Oh, she wants me to let people know that my show is not only for people who like sports, but it's entertaining. So my mom and my girlfriend watch. Thank you, Courtney.
See, that's good. You gotta unplug that. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about. You said game shows.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you win some money on a game show like years ago?
Yep. Yeah. What happened was I was in LA. I was staying with my cousin. I was going back and forth to Pittsburgh. I'd go back and do like a college run and make some money, come back to LA and knock on doors. And there was a game show called Debt, DEBT, hosted by the one and only Wink Martindale. And a lot of comics were going on. Guys like, let me think, Bobby Tessel, Ryan Hopak, a lot of comedians went on, Chip Chinnery. So all these comics, I mean, who knows pop culture better than comics sitting around all day watching TV? So a lot of us went on. I went in and I took the audition test. It was 50 questions. I turned it in. The woman said, "You're one of only 2 perfect scores ever." She's like, "You're on." I'm like, "Oh my God." So I went on and I got real cocky. I was on like a hot streak. And then I missed a couple towards the end. And this girl could have beat me had she remembered Ted McGinley's name, but she couldn't remember it. So I got to I won $7,000, but you could go double or nothing. And you got to pick your area of expertise. And I had submitted 3. Michael Keaton movies, the Pittsburgh Pirates of the early 90s, and the music of Billy Joel. So the only one I was positive about was the Billy Joel music. So you don't know which one until Wink says, "All right, to double your money to 14,106, your category is the music of Billy Joel. Think about it. We'll come back." Came back from break. I'm like, let's do it. Went for it, doubled my money, and I got a check for 14 grand. And that was more money than I'd ever had. And I put in the bank and I lived off that. And the casting woman passed my name around to some producers. So if people don't know, a lot of game shows, they try it out. They bring in actors, comedians, whoever want to do it. You get like $25. Now it's maybe like 50. But back then it was like $25 to come in, play the game so they could kind of work out, the bugs. And on my way out, I said, "Hey, by the way, I'm a comedian. I'm interested in hosting or writing, whatever you need." And this company, Wheeler Sussman, whose big hit was Singled Out with Chris Hardwick and Jenny McCarthy, they brought me in, or they had me submit. I was back in Pittsburgh at the time. I submitted some writing samples for a show they were going to do at the Game Show Network, which was taking old game shows and having 2 hosts, 2 comedians watch it and make fun of it. And I wrote all this stuff. They said, "You're hired." And I moved to LA in October of 96 and got into the game show world. And then Scott St. John, who ended up producing the second show I worked on there when he was doing Street Smarts, he's like, "I need someone to help me write and develop this pilot." I came in. I was shooting a lot of the test footage. Warner Brothers saw it and said, "This guy's good. Let's make him a field reporter." Then I hosted the whole run through one day at Warner Brothers. They go, "Wow, he's great. He did the script and handled it really well." Little did they know I had written that script for other people to come in and audition. And then I just got the show all by myself, which obviously changed my life. So I've always had this weird tie-in with game shows. I've produced, written, hosted, sold. So I can't thank game shows enough. So it's been a weird small circle. Every game show I ever did, it was people I'd worked with on other ones, kind of a small fraternity in LA. But yeah, I mean, and I still watch game shows.
No. Do you remember the question about Billy Joel? What was the question?
I'm
don't answer. I'm gonna see if I can.
I was going to stop.
I'm an average Billy Joel fan.
No, I was going to stop and do it there. Okay, so I later find out that a friend of mine, Jonathan Bourne, who I ended up writing on game shows the following year, he was a writer on the show and he wrote this. So Wink Martindale goes, "Okay, you got to finish the lyrics to this Billy Joel song. It takes a lot to keep a love alive, and every heart pumps a different beat. But if we shift our love into overdrive, we could generate a lot of heat." It's a deep cut.
Dude, I don't know, because I used to make jokes about Billy Joel. I do a joke on stage about Davies, and then Davies in the Navy and probably for life. And I'm like, well, maybe Davey is gay. Maybe maybe he can't. He can go. And that's why there's all guys in a bar, and there's a waitress practicing politics. Maybe that's why he never had time for a wife. And Davey, maybe they're dating. So that's my thing. But no, what was
the answer? Was we could generate a lot of heat on 52nd Street. It's the last cut of 52nd Street, right? It's the title cut. Total. Now, if you watch the clip, I think it's on YouTube. If you hit Frank Nicotero Debt, as he starts reading it, you're gonna see like a blank look on my face, like, "Oh no, I just blew $7 grand." And then as he get we could shift our love in overdrive. We could generate a lot of heat. And then I heard dun 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 on 52nd Street. I say it. He hands me a suitcase of $14,106. Boom. And then I went on a sports trivia show as a contestant. Me and a buddy, and won some furniture and some prizes and a golfing driver. And then I just started producing, and then that got me into hosting game shows. So it's a weird path. So a lot of comedians will go, well, how did you get street smarts? How did you do this? How did you get seen? And I'm like, dude, I took a weird route. Started out as a contestant on a game show, worked my way to writer, producer, and then host. So I said, that worked for me. I don't know what to tell you, but that's how I did it. I'm one of the rare people who took that avenue.
Well, no, I was on Instagram and I was watching my Tom Dempsey story because I wanted to see how many likes I got, because I'm like, this is a great story.
I wish we would have got it out sooner. There was a miscommunication about who was going to edit it. And then one kid was out with the flu that I had the same week. So it's a great story. Please, people, find it. I'll put it on my social media again after this.
But no, as I'm scanning it, I find this Deb Whitkiss. Now I'm gonna tell you my story about Deb.
Okay.
I had done, when I had the Cooper talk in the studio, there was a comic, and he was from Huntington Beach. I think his name was Dan Norelli. He had done Letterman twice. I think his name was Dan Norelli.
Okay.
And as he's leaving, he goes, "You're from Cherry Hill." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you know Deb Whitkiss? I worked with her on some show." And I'm like, "No." But then I looked her up on Facebook, because she's someone from Cherry Hill in LA, and we became friends on Facebook. And I was going to meet her at the Arizona game. Me and my wife went to the Eagles, Arizona, when we were still in LA, and a lot of people from LA went, and we couldn't meet up because I'd never met her, and I haven't met her in person. But in fact, there's a local paper called Cherry Hill Neighbors, and I was in their segment Straight Out of Cherry Hill. So it was a segment about me, and it was week before me was the guy from CNN, the political commentator. I'm blanking on his name, but the lady said, "Do you know anyone would be good?" And I mentioned Deb. So I've never met Deb. Our joke is I went to Cherry Hill East, which is a much superior school to Cherry Hill West. Okay, just so you know, back, and she can talk different, but we all know East is the beast. East is the whatever. East is the West is the least, East is the best, whatever it is. The Lions, we were the Lions. I don't even know. We were the Cougars. They were the Lions. I don't even know. But so I sat there and I see Deb and I know she's a huge Eagles fan, but I'm thinking, how do you know Deb Whitkiss, and why is she on your show like this? I mean, it's just, and I'm not that she doesn't deserve to be on a show. It's just so random that we're on the same Instagram page that you have.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Instagram is when you're scrolling through and you see someone, then you see also friends with, and you're like, how the hell do they know each other? So it was during COVID. I was in LA, and I got a call from my manager at the time, and she's like, "Hey, I have a friend of a friend. This guy, Howard, wants to do a sports gambling podcast with a guy named Wayne Allen Root." Now, Wayne Allen Root's like a Vegas legend. He's a tout. He's one of these guys. I'm 10-0 in my last 10 games, and call my hotline for $40. You get all the winners, or you get the rest of the season for free. And he also ran for vice president of the Green Party or the Libertarian Party or something. So she puts me in touch with this Howard Lefkowitz, and they're like, they want to talk to you. They want to do a Zoom audition with you today. So I log on, and behind me in LA at the time, I had my Mean Joe Green, Terry Brett. I had all this Pittsburgh stuff. Turns out this guy, Howard Lefkowitz, is from Pittsburgh, and we knew a lot of mutual people. So he goes, all right, we're going to do this podcast. He goes, we talk sports. Like an hour afterwards, he's like, he's hired. So the first episode, there's going to be like 8 of us co-hosting the show. A couple guys I didn't know. I didn't hardly any of them, and Deb was one of them. So the first show, there's way too many people talking. It's just kind of a mess. And we get an email a couple days later, like, okay, we got rid of 5 of the 8 people. Next week, we do the show again. And then they go, all right, we're getting rid of everybody but Frank and Wayne. I was like, okay. So then we slowly integrated Sean Salisbury, who we had a guest. Sean Salisbury, former quarterback, ESPN guy, and still has a radio show in Houston. And Deb came back too. So Deb was a regular, and we had never met. So it was me and Wayne Allen Root. He'd give his picks out. Me and Sean would talk sports. And we had like Warren Moon on, Pete Rose. We had like a lot of great, it was COVID. It was easier to get guests because everyone was trapped. So I was doing a show at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank that you know, and I'm walking off stage and it's, hey, Frank. And I turn and there's Deb Whitkus, who I had been doing this show with, much like you. I'd never met her. And she came and showed up at Flappers. And then after that, she had come to my girlfriend and I. We had Halloween parties and we'd gone out socially with her many times. And then last year, she was in Vegas covering the Super Bowl and she came and we watched the Super Bowl together because she goes by sports reporter Deb, right? She gets all the media passes. She loves going to all those events. So we hung out in Vegas together. She came and saw me at the Comedy Magic Club because she lived down in the beach, down near Hermosa or whatever. And she's just great. She's a hustler and she's an Emmy winner, right? She does post-production on some court shows. And now she's doing the one, what's the show she works on? iCrime or ITV or whatever. I can't think of the name of it. But yeah, she's great. So that's how we met. And, last time I saw her in person, I guess was the Super Bowl 2 Super Bowls ago when we watched the game in a booth at South Point. But yeah, she's just one of those people who everyone seems to have 6 degrees of Deb Whitkus somehow.
Now tell the viewers more about Street Smarts, because you did that for many years. Now,
Yeah.
what was the show about? Tell people, and why do you think it lasted for so long? Because a lot of those shows don't last.
Yeah, you know what? I think to this day, it's still the longest running syndicated original format game show since the turn of the century. So I don't know. Scott hired me, said, look, we're going to do a show. We ask people questions on the street, kind of what Stern did and Leno was doing with jaywalking. So he goes, we're going to have 2 contestants in the studio. They're going to try and guess whether these people know the answer or not. And if they win, most people, I think the average payout was like a couple grand, right? So I didn't know. I thought I was just going to be one of the field reporters, but like I was saying, they kept liking what I was doing. They're like, all right, he's going to do the whole show. So it was like January of 2000. Scott St. John, who's gone on to produce a ton of huge game shows, and he had done Change of Heart was a big one, but he ended up doing Deal or No Deal and tons of other big ones. So he goes, the day we were all leaving for New York or Chicago, or I think it was a run on all 4 cities, Chicago, New York, Boston. He goes, all right. He goes, we're doing 175 episodes. It was syndicated. It's first season. He goes, the first month of shooting is going to make or break the show, and it's all on you. No pressure. Go get them. So, we didn't really know what we were doing. We're on the streets asking people questions, and we just learned a lot about how to do it, who to find in a crowd. I mean, it was all just, we had recruiters going out, and we would be in the middle of Times Square, and they would look for the loudest person in a group of friends and say, all right, come over here. They'd ask them some test questions and pass them on to another recruiter, and they're like, all right, they're going on the show. So we could be out all day. We would never really interview more than 10 because during the test questions, they had to kind of miss more than half. If somebody got all right, that was no good. But the way the script was, each person got a different, we matched up 3 people on one script. So 175 different scripts, needed 3 people each show. And, try to mix black, white, male, female, Latino, Asian, whatever. And it was 33 questions. And the way they were set up, everybody was probably going to miss 5 to 10. But we wanted people that missed like 15 to 20, because then it would be easy to kind of put the pieces together. But sometimes you'd get like a really good looking girl or a good looking guy who had great personality. They might only miss 5 of 35, but we would show one of their wrong answers early. So now people are like, well, I don't know. And the first round was, who got it right. Second round was who got it wrong. And then you could pick one of the 3 people to be your pony for round 3. And then round 4 was pick one. Did they get it right or wrong? So the first season went great. Second season, we built upon that. Third season was our strongest season. Ratings were good. We were on really late at night. New York, we were on at 4 a.m. But it was like doing really well because that's when people got back from bars. But being on WGN, the superstation, was huge because we were on WGN like twice a day, like at 3 in the afternoon and 11 at night. So Chicago is really what made the show happen. And then I think for the last 2 years, they made us a part of the syndication package for Friends. So if someone wanted Friends, they had to take us too, or something like that. I was never really told, but we did 5 years. We did almost 800 episodes, and look, people still remember it. We did a reboot for the show, fall of 2019. Me doing all the field stuff and Jeff Foxworthy doing the studio stuff. I never even saw the pilot. I heard it was great, and they took it out early 2020 to sell, and then COVID hit. So it's kind of hard to sell a show where a guy's going around talking to strangers with a microphone. Probably the last show that's going to get approved after COVID. I've never seen the pilot. It's still sitting there. I've never seen it, but I mean, if it ever happened again, cool. I've done some other Man on the Street shows since. It seems like I get a lot of the calls. We did Pontoon Payday, which is a game show I did for CMT, which is me with drunk kids on a boat asking them questions. And then I just did one for Hearst TV called Wait, What Happened, was taking news stories and asking people questions on the street. So I've spent my life on the streets a lot. But yeah.
When you're a host of it, when you're a host of a show like that, okay, and you did so many of them. Do you ever just run into some real pricks? Like you just sit there and go, God, I cannot stand this person. And how do you deal with that? So I would think, because I hosted this real estate seminar, and I was supposed to do an interview with this guy who was the cybersecurity guy. And we get on the call, the Zoom call, and his team gets on. And he's on his speakerphone, and he all of a sudden it changes. He's going to speak for 45 minutes. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. I said, but hey, I'm getting paid. I don't care. So he goes up and he gets up there and he's trying to he's like, well, we got to do this. And I said, dude, I'm the host. I said, you talk to the organizers. And he went up and he ate shit for 45 minutes. Boring as hell. And I was like, and then it was funny, a buddy of mine who is the mayor of a small town next to me goes, when I worked in, with this bank, we tried to deal with this guy. And he goes, was he as much of an asshole to you as he was to me? I go, yeah, he was no talent asshole. So you meet those people. And when I'm a host, I can't show my disdain when I introduce a guy. I can't go, this guy is a prick. So give me a few instances on your show.
This is easy. So we filmed in New Orleans. Our first season, we went to Mardi Gras in March. Our executive producer, Carla Kaufman Sloan, was from New Orleans. So she got us a shooting location at a friend's restaurant on a balcony during the madness, right? And I'll never forget the local guy we hired. We had a crew that traveled, but we'd hire a few locals. And we'd be right on Bourbon Street. And he'd go, all right, let me turn on the asshole magnet. And he'd turn the light on. And it was like, whoom, just surrounded by people. And most of the time it was me interviewing a girl. And they go, oh, it's Girls Gone Wild, because that's what was popular at the time. But it wasn't hard to find people. The fear was after season 1 is after people see that people tend to look stupid sometimes on the show, that we wouldn't get people to do season 2, 3, 4. Complete opposite. I go, you guys, we're at the Minnesota State Fair. People see a Hollywood production is there. They are going to line up. And it happened, right? So sometimes I would show up, the crew would get there early. I would show up like maybe an hour after they set up. They'd already have the whole day filled almost. Well, sometimes as evening approached and people would get nervous, they go, well, go have a shot, go have a beer, come back. So sometimes people would go and imbibe a little too much. And they'd be a little out of their mind. So the producer and I, we just had a few things. It was like, if it wasn't working, if they were too difficult, if they weren't letting me talk or getting the questions out, he would say, okay, just a couple more questions. That was it. Or if I was with somebody I really hated, I'd go, Carlos, just a couple more questions, right? And he'd go, yep. Sometimes if he thought somebody was so good that they were worth putting up with, he'd go, no, we'll finish the script. And I'd be like, but it was usually the right call, right? They were just draining, right? But those are the people that were the best. You needed personality. You needed people who are going to be fun. The only rule was that everyone prepped them was don't say, I don't know. So if the question is, what actress was up for Best Oscar Actress for starring in the movie Pretty Woman? If they don't know Julia Roberts, we just didn't want them saying, I don't know. They had to just guess something. So they go, Jennifer Aniston, right? So people go, oh, you tell them what to say. No. Legally, we can't. Look, standards and practices, money's on the line. The only thing they could never say was, I don't know. So if someone was a little drunk or kept saying, I don't know, that's when we would cut them, right? We would just say, no. They're like, wait, you interviewed that last person for a half hour. Why do you only need 5 minutes with me? We're like, because you're so good, or your answers were so great, and we'd get rid of them. The people in the field didn't get paid because otherwise that would influence how they answer questions. So they got T-shirts, keychains, a mug, whatever, some street smart swag. But we really had it down to a science by the season 2. But the first season, so 175 episodes, 3 people each show. Let's round it to 180. We needed 540 people that were good for the show, right? 3 a show. So it took us 1,200 interviews. We would just, sometimes we'd be somewhere in the middle of a mall because it was raining outside, and we would only get 3 or 4 people in a day, So we would just have to keep interviewing people sometimes on those same scripts. So it was a lot of work the first season and maybe the beginning of season 2. But by mid-season 2, when the show started getting more exposure, people were lining up to be on the show. We could shoot. Sometimes we wouldn't even take a lunch. We would just shoot 8 people and rap and go out and drink.
No, but did anyone stick out to you? Does anyone you remember that was just a nightmare? Yeah. It was like there one person that sticks out and you go, oh, man.
There were a couple in New York. It was usually New York.
Tell me what happened.
It was usually New York guys. Well, we had this old cab driver on, and he was great. He was this nice guy, but we had a couple loud guys that were heckling him a little. And I'll never forget. So one of the questions I asked this old cab driver was, can you name the 4 time zones in the contiguous United States? Whatever. Everyone knows it's Eastern, Mountain, Central, Pacific, right? So the old guy's like, yeah, 4 time zones. Yeah, morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Right? It was beautiful. But these people are like, this is bullshit. You're telling them what to say. We're like, no, we're not. So we put them on. So we're like, okay, you think so? We put them on. We didn't even try them out. We just wanted to put them on so they'd leave us alone. We had a security guard, but these guys would come on and they're trying to be funny. They'd swear too much. There was a guy named Ronnie who we thought was going to be a nightmare. He was in a leisure suit. He looked like Fred Dreyer. Actually, this was in New Orleans. So he was giving us a hard time, and he wouldn't leave, and we couldn't make him leave. So we said, we'll put you on the show. And I didn't want him on there. He was a real jerk. He was definitely a little inebriated. He turned out to be one of the best guests. So what we did was we had something called Revenge Week, where the people I interviewed in the streets, we flew them into LA so they got to be on the show and actually win some money. So actually a couple of the nightmares, guys like him, the nightmares were the people that wouldn't leave us alone. And because we were on public property, we were in the middle of we were in the middle of Chicago. We're at Navy Pier. And these people who were given and would scream out answers, we're like, look, we'll put you on. And we did this a couple of times and put people on, and we'd cut them after 15 questions. They thought they were getting on the show. But a couple of times it worked out where they turned out to be these real characters. But it was a challenge. I was always feared. People would always say someone's going to take a swing at you at some point. And no one ever did. Because what I really found and what their focus groups found was that I wasn't a typical game show host, right? I was this unassuming short guy. I was a little bit of a wise ass, but I never made these people feel stupid. Like if I ask people, what's a group of fish called? And they're like, a group of fish. And I'm like, come on, you probably learned this in school. I'm giving them the answer and they don't even realize it. They're like, is that a herd? So I think I was only fearful once. When we did the pilot in LA, there was a guy, turns out it was this black guy. His name was Vontae Sweet. He was an actor. He always played a thug in movies. And one of the last things we had to do in the script was sometimes show them a word and they had to pronounce it. Like the word like rendezvous or something, right? So I was like, okay, Vontae, we got a couple more to show you. And he whispers in my ear, he's like, man, I can't read. If you make me do that, I'm going to stick you. So the producer can hear the mic and I go, hey, Carlos, I can ask you a question. I go, this guy's going to shiv me. He goes, no, we won't do the cards. So we didn't do the cards and he made the pilot. He was great. But most of the time people just wanted to be on TV, even if they know, like they knew, they're like, yeah, I know you guys are going to make me look stupid. But you know what? A lot of the times it's, it wasn't just me. There's 30 or 40 people. There's cameras. There's lights. You lose, you freeze, you forget, and it was all in fun and they knew that. So, but there was a couple like stoned kids that we had on. This kid Nibbles, who took forever because he was so high, but he was so funny. He was another guy we flew back in and interviewed when we went back to Minnesota, because I think we interviewed him in the Mall of America. We had him on again. I mean, it's so long ago. I mean, the first year was 25 years ago, but there are still people I'm friends with on Facebook that were contestants that still hit me up. They're like, hey, do you have a tape for the show? And I'm like, I don't have anything. Facebook or on YouTube, Warner Brothers started a page where they digitized a lot of episodes on a Street Smarts channel. So if it's up there, I tell people, hey, take a look there. If not, I might have it on VHS somewhere, but I can't promise you I'd ever find it. But it was great. We had unfortunately, we had a few people that died before and their family wanted them on because they were so excited they were going to do it. This one guy had a heart attack like the day after we taped him and we didn't know. So we called his number, and his like kid answered, and we told him, and they're like, this is all he talked about the day he passed away, was how excited he was. And we were like, look, we don't have to show it. They're like, no, please show it. And a couple people went on. I'm trying to think of some celebrities that were on. A couple actor girls that became pretty successful. I can't remember, but it was fun. We did a lot of charity shows, and that's where Craig Shoemaker came on. But we had Peter Brady and Cindy Brady, right? They came on, which was a thrill for me, and a lot of classic TV stars. We had Shirley Jones, who won an Oscar, for God's sakes, and she was on the Partridge Family. So a lot of my like heroes from childhood and actors I grew up watching, we had on the show. It was tremendous.
Now, do you think you were good on the streets when you were doing the interviews because of your background in stand-up? You think that helped you because stand-up, we all know if you get heckled, if you're dying, you have to come out of it. So you think that helped you in your hosting ability and being a man on the street?
I'll tell you what helped me more than anything by far, and it's an easy answer, and it's David Letterman. I was like a student of watching late night, and before we even had a VCR, my dad would sometimes audio record Letterman for me. Yeah, would audio record it on a cassette tape, and I'd come home from school and listen to Letterman. So every Friday, Letterman did those field pieces, right? When he was really moving on CBS, where, he would work the Taco Bell drive-through, or he would go to, somewhere and do a field piece. And I learned without a doubt how to interview people on the street, how to set them up, how to play Dean Martin to their Jerry, right? Because a lot of the key was me not trying to get my jokes in right away. It's to make them, let them be funny. I mean, these aren't professionals. These are everyone we interviewed on Street Smarts are people who woke up in the morning heading to the state fair in Tennessee and had no idea they were going to be on national TV, right? So they're nervous, right? And I would always go over before and talk to someone for 5 minutes. Hey, it's just me and you hanging out. If you need me to repeat anything, we're going to have a good time. So I was always there to make them shine, and then I could pick my spots. But without a doubt, callbacks, knowing how to work a mic to interview, because I had never interviewed people, but it was all because of studying Letterman and learning how to let it breathe, let them do their thing. If you leave a microphone on someone and you don't say anything, they're going to want to fill that dead air, and they're going to dig a deeper hole trying to think of this answer. Then I get back to me and I get my spot, I get my jokes in. But without a doubt, stand-up helped. I mean, the entire show really was improvised. So I would get a stack of cards before each interview. Like the producer would be like, all right, we're doing script 342. I'd look it over, check the pronunciation. Okay, we got a couple props. Excuse me. I didn't look over the cards really the night before and like think of things that I could maybe say because I didn't know what they were going to say. So it was without a doubt. I mean, I had to be on point and be locked in and focused. And it was all improvised after there, every time. And now I did get to do each script 3 times. So maybe something that someone said, I could remember and call back that they said and be like, oh, I interviewed this girl in Texas and she said the answer was this, right? So then it was tying everything together, which they loved. And it was just such a weird experiment to do this show, and it was a social experiment. We always thought that a reality show would have been watching us film it because it was just this traveling circus and checking into hotels and getting to locations where the permits weren't ready. I mean, it was so much fun, but we traveled to every major city and shot. I mean, it was the best. It was, 2000 to 2006, we did it. And after 9/11, we were in Chicago during 9/11. We were staying in a residence inn behind the Sears Tower, and production called and said, there's bomb threats, so we got to get you guys out of there. And the producer, Jen, what's her last name? Anyway, she's like, my family has a home in Wisconsin. Let's get in the vans and go. And, no one knew what was going on. We ended up driving back from Chicago. We didn't know what to do. And they're like, we can't let you drive. You got to wait for planes. I'm like, you guys don't understand. We're getting in vans and we're driving home. I don't care. So we drove across the country, and so we obviously didn't shoot for like a month, and we figured, all right, what's the best city to shoot in after 9/11? And we were like, Texas. We went to Dallas, and people couldn't, people were like, oh my God, thanks for being here and getting everybody back out and, trying to make everyone feel good. So it was really weird after 9/11 to go out and shoot. And then we ended up going to New York and got back into a groove. But it was just the most unique social experiment, the way we did this show. And I would love to do it again.
Now, you mentioned Letterman.
Yeah.
Now, is that why you got into stand-up?
Letterman, I mean, I remember having a black and white TV, and I would turn it on at night. I'd shove a blanket under the door to block the light from emitting underneath the doorway, and I'd turn the darkness all the way down, and I'd watch Carson. So I watched Johnny Carson, and I was always like, when the comedians came on, that was my thing. And I remember there were 3 Davids that were always on: David Steinberg, David Brenner, David Letterman. Loved Brenner. Didn't care for Steinberg that much. He was a little too cerebral and whatever. Brenner was just machine gun with jokes, but Letterman was just so weird and different. And I was a big Steve Martin fan too. So I had, Wild and Crazy Guy, Comedy Is Not Pretty, and Robert Klein, who I still think is a forgotten godfather of comedy and one of the best. And his HBO specials, to me, I watched them. I had a 6-hour VHS tape with Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy, Robert Klein, young comedian specials, Dangerfield specials, and just studied them. First night I did stand-up, May 4th, 1988 at the Funny Bone, I knew how to kind of build a set. My first time on stage went really well. And a lot of the local guys are like, have you done this before? That was my first time. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. Then the next time I went on stage a week later, the worst thing ever. So, it was very humbling. And I was like, okay, you got to work at this. But I just figured I was such a student and really just studied how to do it. And I knew kind of to have callbacks and an opening and a closing, but it was mostly because of Letterman and watching late night every night, and in the summer staying up till 2 a.m. and those HBO specials, man, those were the best.
Now, who were some of the Pittsburgh guys? Was Gardell? No, was Chip Chinnery?
No, Chip Chinnery is, I think those were Cincinnati guys, right? I think, but I worked with Tessel because I was either in Cincinnati a lot. Pittsburgh guys were Billy Elmer, John Knight, Ed Driscoll, but then David Michael, Keith Leslie. Gardell didn't start in Pittsburgh. He grew up in Pittsburgh, then moved to Florida and started stand-up in Florida and New York. He never really was in the Pittsburgh scene. Tons of my other friends that I saw, Sean Black and Monkey Cook. Who else was around? John Caparulo was from East Liverpool, Ohio, and he says that he would come to the open mic in Pittsburgh when I was kind of already doing it. He was just starting out. There's another guy, Steve Byrne, was after me. Steve was from a rival high school, but he started after I left. But those were the guys in Pittsburgh when I started. Billy Elmer, Jimmy Crenn, who was on the radio on the DVE morning show, who was the biggest thing going when I started because he was on the rock station, Paulson and Crenn. And I learned so much from those guys because they had me on once a week on their radio show. And I was 19, 20, 21 years old and learned how to do radio. I should say my dad was a DJ for 40 years. So I knew how to do radio, but I didn't know how to do comedy on radio. And they'd write me into sketches. And this show was just the biggest show. I mean, you'd go on DVE. I'd get a hit at 9 o'clock. And then I would drive home, and then I would have so many messages from friends. Heard you on DVE. And then I could start booking myself into bars as heard on DVE and asking for more money. It was crazy. So radio was so powerful. But those guys, did you know Billy Elmer, heavyset guy?
I know the name.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask you though, you were out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Now, when I was out of Philly,
right.
And when I started working, there was the Sharon Rearick and the Keith Gissers. Did you ever work for them? Because we used to say Keith Gisser would book the Constellation Tour because you would start in Maryland, then you go all the way up to Ohio, then you come all the way back to Maryland, and you go, yeah, exactly. And then Sharon Rearick had the Funny Farm, which was and then she had a club called
in Youngstown.
Mad Hatters.
Okay,
yeah. She had Mad Hatters in Painesville, and I remember I headlined that. I co-headlined it with a guy named Herb Rahm, this old guy, and he did a fake. He took his hat off and did a fake spot and did a Gorbachev impression. He put a fake
yeah,
and the crowd goes crazy. And here
that almost sounds familiar.
But what sucked was I said, so where are we staying? And it's in the Painesville, and it was this house, and they didn't have a shower. They had a tub. And there's no way I was getting in a tub that a bunch of comics have been in. But now, that was a Sharon Rearick gig.
Was it Painesville or Zanesville?
Painesville. I think it was Painesville. It was near Cleveland. It was 40 miles outside Cleveland. Mad Hatters Comedy Theater.
No, Keith Gisser was out of Cleveland or Ohio, I think. He had all those runs. It'd be like, oh, I got a Gisser run, you know, and you do a show, and then it was 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours driving in between, like, you know, 4 gigs. Karen Rhodes booked some stuff around Pittsburgh. But yeah, I mean, though, but you know what? That's what made you good. By without a doubt, those runs. Going to Cambridge, Ohio, Zanesville, Ohio. I've been to every small town in Ohio. I know for a fact. And when people go, I'm from Ohio, I go, what town? They're like, you've never heard of it. I'm like, try me. Every town, every Holiday Inn Express, every, you know, whatever pizza joint had a room, we did it. And I wouldn't trade those days for anything because those made you better. And, you know, I middled pretty quick, right? So, you know, you have an MC that does 10, 15, you have a middle that does 25 or 30, and your headliner does 45 or whatever. So I started as an MC, but then to really get any money on these runs, you had to middle. I barely had 25 minutes, right? And I didn't know how to bring the crowd into it, but you would go and do these bar shows, and, you know, you had that same 5 minutes you'd open with, and if it wasn't working, you're like, well, if my first 5 isn't working, I'm in trouble, right? Holy shit. So you'd start, maybe something would happen. And that is how I learned how to work a room. Billy Elmer, this was a guy who was masterful at working a room, and I opened for him on so many gigs. I learned how to do it. But you only get better doing those, you know, when you do the Columbus Funny Bone for 8 shows, Wednesday through Sunday, you have a bit on Wednesday that by Sunday night, you've added a minute and a half, and you know where the punchlines are and the pauses are. I mean, the road was the best. And the miserable, long, cold drives through snow, it was the best. And, you know, you're going with a buddy. Those were the best days, you know, and you're making $125. That was more money than I'd ever seen. I was working at a record store making $60, making $3.35 an hour minimum wage. And then when I first started doing stand-up, I was getting $60 on a weekend or $80, you know, and I'm like, under the table, no taxes? Yes, let's do this. And, you know, and it was, those were the greatest times, man, because
did you ever do, I don't know if you remember this. I think it was a Gisser gig. The split rook in Erie, Pennsylvania. It was like a rock club. So you went on stage, and the stage is up here, and there's a huge pit where I guess they dance, and there's people back there, and they put you up in a converted trailer park. Because a week before I played Trump's Castle in Atlantic City, I'm thinking, cool, you know, I'm in a casino. This is great. And then I drive to Ohio. I mean, it's on the way on a Gisser run.
Yeah, sure.
And it's the split rook in, and I'm in a converted trailer park, and I'm thinking, this is like where I get murdered. This is where someone finds me and kills me. But
this is where the dayline happens. No, yeah. That one, the one I remember in Erie was we were in, I want to say it was a Holiday Inn, and the bar and the stage, there was all glass behind you, and it looked out onto the lake, and it was beautiful. And I remember being there one night, and just as the show's going, like a foot of snow's coming down, and I'm like, I'm not leaving Erie tonight. I used to like try to skedaddle and get out, and that Erie to Pittsburgh drive was 2 hours. I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere, and get snowed in for a couple of days. That one I don't remember, but I totally remember the dance floor gigs where it's really not even a stage, and the DJ's like, we're going to stop the good times we have comedians. Here's Frank, you know, and you get up there and people are still, and you're up there and you're on a railing. Oh yeah. But again, those are the ones that made you good. Or you show up to a gig where they go, okay, if you guys want to just set up your sound system right here, that would be great. It's like, what? Set up our sound? You don't have a sound system for us? No. We have musicians come in all the time. They got their own stuff. It's like, no, this is different.
Now, what made you move to LA?
Well, you know, back then it was like New York or LA, and my cousin Greg, who has a special effects company, and you know, he does, you know, directs Walking Dead and Creepshow. So he was
Nicotero from The Walking Dead, right?
Exactly. That's my cousin, and we're like brothers, right? So, he was in LA. He had a house. I had a free place to stay, and he knew people. He was already making a lot of movies and stuff. So I went out there, and look, the first couple of years I lived rent free, stayed on his couch. And then I got when I got Street Smarts and I started making money, I wrote him a check for all the back rent and everything. And you know, so that was that was like 93. I started going out and, you know, trying to hang out at the comedy clubs and try to work commercial idea, whatever, just getting the lay of the land in LA. And then it wasn't until I got that writing job on a game show network job that we developed it for months and the show never got on air. But I always say this is officially when you move to LA, when you have your car shipped. I had a 92 Nissan Maxima and I was renting ugly duckling rental cars in LA, like pieces of shit. And it was October, November, 96. I had it shipped out. It was like $700. It showed up filthy dirty. And I'm like, all right, I'm officially, I live in California. And so that's why. I mean, it was New York or LA, but I had lived in LA when I was a kid for a while because my dad was, a DJ, but also an actor and writer and lived in LA. And he wrote jokes for Wolfman Jack on the Midnight Special and wrote some commercials. And, he was trying to hustle some scripts and he was on the radio. He was on KFI and Kiss FM and stuff. So I had a fondness for LA and and I had a place to stay. I had a free house to stay. So that's what made that very easy to choose from.
Now, do you miss LA now that you're, because Vegas is completely different.
Yeah, it's completely different. What's nice to know is, look, if I need to get there for something, I can be there in an under 4-hour drive, or I can jump on a plane and be there in 45 minutes. So yeah, I still have a lot of friends and family there. The comfort of knowing every road and every shortcut, relearning, especially at my age. So I'm over 50, right? Relearning a whole new city, starting over, like I said, auditioning at a comedy club. So yeah, it's been challenging. But I have friends my age and a lot of the work is dried up, and a lot of people during COVID, went to Phoenix or Vegas, or a lot of comics went to Texas, and you can work remotely. And it was just something where this gambling show, this podcast, Punchlines at the South Point, came up, and I'm like, okay, let's see where this road takes us. So I'm here now. Will I ever live in LA again? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't be against it. But for now, I'm here in Vegas doing this.
Now, when you said, you had to start over in comedy again, how has your writing changed over the years? Because you've been doing it for a long time. Have you grown as a writer? Do you feel like you're still doing the same stuff, or?
No, sure. I have some greatest hits that are still in there, but I do a lot of, I hate saying crowd work anymore, because all the videos you see on TikTok are these guys that don't know what they're doing, and girls, and they hashtag it crowd work. I'm doing crowd work. No, whatever. I like to improvise a lot. I constantly try out new stuff. I'm not one of these guys who ever writes down anything verbatim. I'm doing a show tomorrow at this restaurant here in Vegas, nightclub. And I have people that came and saw me at a club that I did a couple of weeks ago that I work with. Some people who saw me maybe a year ago. So a lot of guys will just go up and do the same stuff. You guys, people like that. I would get bored doing that. My girlfriend, who's been at every show, would be like, she knows everything I do, but when she's there, it's a challenge for me because I don't want to bore her. So I'm constantly trying new stuff. So I'll take like an idea up and run with it. My first 5 minutes, I usually like commenting on where I'm at. So I think I'm better on stage, better on my feet, but that's just 30 years plus, I am finding stuff I've written in a notebook from years ago that now I go, well, why didn't I ever work with that? So it's kind of revisiting an old notebook. I have a notebook right here that's ancient, and oh God, not that. But I hate cooking, Pentatonic, Spirit Airlines, homeless guy asked me for money. So I just see these stories and little words I've written down that I will probably try and do a lot of this stuff tomorrow. So it's just I look at it as a challenge every time, because for me it's exciting to do new stuff too, because you don't want to do the same stuff. But I think I'm going to be starting. There's a guy, Don Barnhart. I don't know if you know Don Barnhart.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook. He has a club there.
Yeah, he has Delirious. So it's a comedy club I've done several times here. He had some health issues, or he goes out on cruise ships. He kind of has a residency where he does it. He owns it. He does it. But I filled in, and the shows have gone great. I brought people in. So he's like, look, let's give you a night, Tuesdays or Wednesdays starting. So I'll have like my own night. So it's kind of cool. It's not a bigger club. It's a great room. I love it. But, the goal, I guess, for all the comics here to get a residency. Butch Bradley is a friend of mine. He's from back.
He went to the same college as me. I didn't know. We both went to Stockton State.
There you go. Yeah. So Butch is great. And he's worked hard for the last 7 or 8 years here. He moved here and now he has a residency he does over at the LA Comedy Club in the Strat. And he and Brett Ernst do a night over at Jimmy Kimmel's. So, that's the goal, I guess, is to get a regular residency or a rotation or something. So I do the sports thing during the day. It frees me up for the nights. And, that's the goal, just to get on stage and maybe catch a full-time gig. Bill Dwyer is a comedian. I don't know if you know Bill from Chicago.
Bill's done Cooper Talk a few times. My friend
Bill's
John
awesome.
Mata has the Bill Dwyer Christmas ornament.
Wait, what?
They put a picture. No, John Mata is a comic from Philly. I know he has a picture of Bill Dwyer in a Christmas ornament. And he always puts on Facebook, it's not Christmas until you see the Dwyer ornament. And it's Bill with one L. It's
yes.
one L.
Yes. And Dwyer, he was the host of the sports game show that me and my buddy went on. So I bumped into him at a dog park here in Vegas. So I'm walking my dog and I go, Bill Dwyer. He goes, who's that? And I go, it's Frank Nicotero. He goes, whoa. So I go, yeah, I'm doing this show. Well, he lives in Vegas now for about 2 years. He hosts BattleBots Live. He hosted the original thing on Comedy Central, the BattleBots. So I just went this past Saturday. They do a show. They have the studio right out behind the Horseshoe, the old Bally's. And they do this phenomenal show, the BattleBots fight. But they got like videos and Bill and his friend comment. And he's outstanding. And he was just on my show last Friday. He's been on 2 or 3 times. Hysterical. So Bill, he's got the BattleBots thing. So gigs like that pop up. So you never know. But, I'm here now and this is what I'm doing and taking it one day at a time, man. It's crazy business we've chose. And I've been working since I was 19. So I'm grateful.
Well, I got one final question. You've been working. Sure. It's crazy business. One final question. Looking back at your career, what you can say 1 or 2 things. What are 1 or 2 things you're most proud of? I've talked to actors who say they're most proud that their craft paid their kids through college. Sure. I've talked to people who say, I'm an actor who's 78. I'm still doing it, baby.
Yeah.
But what are 1 or 2 things you're really proud of?
The opportunity of something like Street Smarts coming up. I mean, they looked at every comic and I was a nobody. I had just moved to LA and I'd been on game shows and produced game shows. We had some heavy hitters come into audition to be a field reporter or a host. And to get that, and then the story I told earlier where the pressure was on, he's like, look, if we can get a season out of this, it'd be great. And, it's up to you. If you're funny and the show works, it might have a nice run. So I think having the ball in my court and running with it and making that happen, but then also just getting the feedback from people that grew up watching it, people who in college got through it. I used to have people come up to me and say, I was in the hospital with cancer and I watched your show every night. It was the only thing that would keep me going and make me smile. And I would take pictures with these people and they'd be flattered. And I was flattered to do it. Wayne Brady said he had his baby. He wouldn't sleep and he would get up late at night and watch the show. And he had me on his show as a guest. I mean, just knowing what in grade school and high school I was told not to do, which was crack jokes in class, to then get paid for it and make people happy. And now on social media, people find you and you do funny stuff and just making people laugh. And my mom and dad being so open, neither one of them went to college. So I went to a semester at school at Duquesne in Pittsburgh, took a semester off. That's when I started stand up and I was doing really well. And I'm like, I want to give this a shot. They're like, hey, go ahead. They weren't like, get back to school, So I just think the fact that I've been able to still stay around this long and just the feedback you get from people, it's corny to say, but it's nice when you just get a message, people saying, hey, I used to watch this, or I went to your show tonight, really needed it. And that's a hokey thing to say, but proud of that. I'm proud that I've just, I'm still at it. And I still haven't really worn a tie or punched a clock. And I have no other fallback plan at this point in my life. So I got to keep going. But that for sure. I think just being able to keep doing stand up and make people laugh and still enjoy doing it too. Like I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. And anytime I get a set around town, I'm always like, okay, cool. This is what got me here. And the gambling show is nice, but stand up is still the thing that made me get on stage when I was 19.
This has been great, Frank. Now, how can people check out all your stuff? How can they find your show? How can they find you? Give your handles. Yeah,
it's at Frank Nicotero on everything on Facebook, I don't know if people still use that. Instagram, TikTok, it's Punchlines FN, I think. My OnlyFans is for, everywhere it's at Frank Nicotero. But the show is on YouTube TV, and it's Punchlines FN, my initials. And we're having a blast doing it. But yeah, that's it. Social media, Frank Nicotero. I'm still on Facebook, and I think that shows what age I am. Instagram, Twitter. That's where you and I communicate mostly.
People, please go check out the show. And if you go into Frank's Instagram, you can hear my wonderful Tom Dempsey story about him washing my hair when I was 5.
Still the funniest, weirdest story of all time. I love it. The flipper. I didn't realize. I knew he had half a foot. I didn't realize he was
hoof hand. Someone responded on Instagram. They went, "Oh my god, a hoof hand."
It's the best.
So people, go check out Frank. Go on YouTube. Find all the past the Coops Comedy Corner shows. And Jimmy Corham I'm going to thank him for producing the show. And you can go to Comedy Trainwreck, and he has so many great shows. He has Coleman Green has a show. John Kensel and the Wood have a show. Ed McGonigal have a show. So go check it out. Also follow me on Twitter. Threads at Cooper Talk. I think Threads is at Cooper Talk 1 because that's my Instagram. Go to coopertalk.net. That's my other podcast show. I just had Gino Vanelli on. That was just posted.
I opened for Gino Vanelli in Pittsburgh at a small club in 1991. And
there you go. See that, people? It's a small world.
One of the first bands, one of the first artists. I did 3 Dog Nights, Steppenwolf. But Gino Vanelli, I was so excited because my sister had an album, the one with Living Inside myself, Living Inside. So that was a big throw. But Gino Vanelli.
So people go to Cooper Talk. Also, when you're on YouTube, look up the Coop Tank. That's my weekly business show. I moderate 3 local business owners. The Coop Tank, it's great. And that's about it. Email me, the Coop Tank. Actually, email me, coopertalk.net. If you want to get good guests on. And once again, check out Frank Nicotero's work. I'm Steve Cooper. Big shout out to Jimmy Corhan. And I will talk to you all next week. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Coops Comedy Corner.